Hello, everybody. Good morning and good afternoon in Italy. This is Monica Larner, the Italian reviewer with the Wine Advocate, and welcome to another edition of our Instagram Live, the Italian Wine Series. Sorry for the false start there. I was on the wrong Wi-Fi connection, but now I got it right. So today we have another exciting episode. We will be talking with Francesco Ricasoli, of Castello di Brolio in Chianti Classico. Let me get Francesco. Here he is. And it is particularly to speak with Francesco because I'm in the middle of tasting my Chianti Classico wines, one of my favorite reports of the year. There he is! Ciao!
Ciao.
Ciao Francesco, how are you? Come stai?
Benissimo, molto bene.
Bene.
Everything is fine.
Everything is good? You look great.
Yes,
you look.
We are smiling again because, we had July and August quite dry. So we were all worried a little bit about the harvest. And
Yes.
the vines were getting a little bit stressed. Then we had the rain, so now it's much more relaxed.
It seems like there's been quite a bit of rain in the last 4 weeks or so in Italy, no?
Depends where, actually.
Depends where.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Here in Tuscany, especially in Chianti Classico, we had a good rain beginning of September.
Well, I am very
much needed.
Yeah, I'm very excited to speak with you because I am now tasting. I'm in the middle of my Chianti Classico tasting, and it is always one of my favorite reports to write each year because you always learn so much, especially about the different, micro zones of the area. And every time I start tasting, I just realize how vast the opportunity and the potential of your wine region. So I'm particularly happy to speak with you. And
Monica, we are very excited in Chianti Classico because, as you well know, this is a very ancient wine region, and only in the last, I would say, 20, 25 years, the producers of Chianti Classico has been waking up a little bit.
There's been a renaissance. It's your second renaissance in Tuscany.
Correct.
A wine renaissance. Listen, before we start to talk about the nitty-gritty of your wines and of the region, let's just start off. Francesco, how have you been? How have you been these last, what is it now, 6 months of this strange reality that we're living in? How has it been from your perspective?
Well, I've been used to be always on the move, traveling, doing, never stopping. And therefore, I was quite shocked at the very beginning. I would say the very first days of the lockdown. Actually, I was in New York just 2 days before Italy announced the lockdown. And I had been traveling in end of January, February, and beginning of March. Oh, wow.
We already have somebody we already have a request. We will get there.
Okay. Let me see. We have to think about calling now. Of course we have to. And so I was at home for maybe 2-3 days. And then I said, no way. We have to move. And, agriculture has been always considered among le attività principali. So we couldn't stop because nature doesn't stop.
A priority business, a priority activity.
Exactly. And most of the people in the offices were at home, but some of the most important positions, we were there. And so actually I've been practically every day in the office or going around the state. And then since, as you know, Brolio is a destination, we were very frustrated not having people here. And therefore I said to myself, if we don't have the visitors, wine lovers, cyclists, we have the Eroica here, so we have tons of cyclists always going up and down the hills and all this. And then I said to myself, let's bring Brolio to them. Let's bring Brolio, and so I started to make videos. and to post a video on Instagram and Facebook and so on. And so for
By
quite
the
a bit
way,
of time.
if anybody here does not already follow Francesco's Instagram page, I highly suggest you do so, because his photographs are beautiful. It's one of my favorite pages to follow. We both share a passion for photography, and I always love to see your perspective.
You are too kind, Monica. Anyhow, was something to take us alive and to bring and to show some hidden side also of the estate, of the castle, of the vineyard, from a different perspective. And so we did that for, I don't know, few weeks. Then I saw that everybody was doing it, and everybody was having this. And so I said, stop, let's do something else.
Well,
But
you know,
anyhow,
it's been a great time for, for social media connectivity and kind of finding new audiences. Here we are, even right now, but
yes,
it's been
absolutely.
a whole new,
And I think
world, right?
this will have an impact also in the future as well, I think, because I think we have to rethink the way we were working and living and traveling and consuming and everything. So I think we are reshaping ourselves in a different way. And you always have to learn from something even negative, And but then, of course, besides just doing some videos, we said to ourselves, let's be alive, let's have new businesses, let's move on, let's be active, let's keep always contact with our importer distributors, agent. So we never actually stepped down.
Right. And nature keeps going forward, and the vineyard keeps growing and keeps going through its various vegetative cycles. So here we are, almost at harvest. I'm sure you've already started taking some grapes off the vine, no? In terms of harvest,
Yeah, we started already. We did our Chardonnay for Torricella. We did now the rest of the Brolio. I love that wine. It's one of the most underrated white wines of the region. And then we did the rest of the white grapes with the exception of Malvasia for Vinsanto that is going to be later on. We started also today the first Merlot to have a good acidity for our.
Oh, just this morning, huh? Okay, good.
Yeah.
So is that pretty much on schedule for Merlot, or is it a little bit a little bit early?
Late.
A little bit late, actually. Okay.
Yeah. And Sangiovese we are monitoring, but we are doing the curve of maturation. So every other 2 days we pick the grapes, then we do the analysis, and we see with respect also to weather forecast when it's going to be in a sort of way. We have so many differences, so many altitude, microclimate, soils, and so we try to tailor every activity for the different vineyard.
Fantastic. So listen, tell us a little bit. Before we get onto the history, because you have such an important history, but just as we finish up the harvest discussion for 2020, what are you seeing in the vineyards? What are your expectations?
For the moment being, very positive. The rainfall of beginning of September was really a gift of God, and was excellent, despite to what it happened in North Italy. In North Italy, there was hail, storms, and lots of horrible weather. And here was very mild rain, good, that penetrated into the soil. And I think that has been really revitalizing the vineyards. I expect for the moment being excellent vintage. Sangiovese is a little bit lacking in quantity, but quality will be okay. So, but you know, maybe the last Sangiovese we will pick in the first week of October. So it's still a long
So
way
you
to
still
go.
have.
Yeah,
You're in the
yeah.
middle of it
And, you
now,
know,
right? You're in the middle of it now.
yeah,
Well,
exactly.
chin chin to 2020 and for completing a beautiful, a wonderful harvest. And I hope everything it goes exactly as you would like in the vineyards. Listen, Francesco, there is
Absolutely.
no winery in the region whose actual human DNA is more connected to the DNA of Chianti Classico. So can you give us a bit of history of your family's very important history and how that history directly shaped the wines we know today, but starting off with what they were yesterday.
Yeah. First of all, I mean, viticulture has always been practiced since the Etruscan. That is a long time ago, before the Roman time. And this has been a region very poor. Only viticulture was cultivated, a little bit of olive tree, and very little else. My family has its root here in Brolio since a long, long time. We are talking roughly of 900 years. And it's considered one of the oldest wineries in Italy. And a lot of history in winemaking and viticulture has been written here because it's not only historically important, but it's also a very big size as an estate of Chianti Classico. Chianti Classico is known for having lots of small parcels, small ownership, small vineyards. Brolio, I mean, is touching many realities of different terroirs, but overall is the largest owner of vineyard of Chianti Classico in one spot altogether of the entire appellation.
And
So
how many hectares does it count to?
under vine 240, and the property is 1,200 hectares. Roughly in acres, I would say vineyard 240 should be 550, something like that. Am I right? In acres?
I'm going to
For
go
the
with
region,
that. Yeah.
it's a lot. But we are proud. I mean, it's a fantastic heritage. And, you know, in our DNA, we have, you know, the will of always going ahead, experimenting, researching, and so on. And you know well that many years ago, we did the study of all the soil that are where the vineyards are planted here
I
in
can
this
see
region.
some of the soil samples behind you, Francesco. I can
Exactly,
see exactly.
on my back. But before going to nowadays, I think we have to say a few words about the 19th century that was having in Europe the Industrial Revolution. But in agriculture, great people has been moving ahead the economy and trying to revitalize a sector, a main sector of the Italian economy. At that time was very important to make it modern. And one of the most prominent ancestors that I have is Bettino Ricasoli, former Prime Minister of Italy when Italy was reunited in 1861. But then one of the most illuminated, come si dice, illuminato, sapiente researcher and experimentator to try to increase the quality of the wine produced at that time. So he has been traveling mid of the 19th century all around Europe, bringing back different grape varieties, replanting, testing, trying better vinification. He was mad about the acidity that he was getting from his Sangiovese.
But it was just a personal passion, no? I mean, it came because you had this man of enormous culture and wit, and of political interest and cultural interest, and wine. I guess wine must have been a very personal connection to his land, no? And
it was not a passion at the end. It was a passion, but not just a second business.
Right.
He was considering the wine as a main important. I mean, at that time, Ricasoli was controlling half of Chianti, the ancient Chianti, and had lots of land also in Valdarno. It's
so it was already a
30
vision for a viable economy for the region. Now it was already a vision for a viable economy.
And in 1872, then after many years of experimentation and researches, in a very famous letter that he wrote to a professor in Pisa, he wrote what it became to be known, the formula, the blend of Chianti at the time.
The magic blending formula, right, of Chianti Classico.
Exactly.
Right.
And so using Sangiovese, a little bit of Canaiolo to soften up the harshness and the acidity at that time of Sangiovese, and a little bit of Malvasia Bianca, the white grape, that could be omitted for the wines made for aging. But you know, different time, different culture, different way of living, and wine at that time was an essential part of the amount of energy the workers were having.
Right.
You know, bread, wine that was much more diluted, and that's
it was a
why
fuel,
Malvasia Bianca was used to make it a little bit lighter and more drinkable.
Right, more kind of fragrant and lifted, yeah.
Exactly. But he was very modern, because at the same time he said, but don't use Malvasia Bianca for the wine made for aging. Much more modern than the legislator of the previous, the next century made when they issued Malvasia, the white grape, compulsory. Nowadays, everything is changed, and I think getting back to the very beginning, Chianti Classico is having an amazing renaissance, and wine lover, Sangiovese lover that are looking for what is hot, they are looking into Chianti Classico, I would say. And so we are very excited. For too long, this appellation has been underrated and misunderstood and not appreciated. Today, you have in some of the best Chianti Classico, you can find really the personality of Sangiovese, the elegance, the drinkability, and uniqueness. Because
there's such a strong territorial imprint in the wines. I mean, it is, you know, you really, every time I taste my favorite wines from Chianti Classico, I feel like I'm there. It transports me immediately to the vistas and the colors and the smells and the soft rolling hills and landscapes that, you know, I've come to love. It's really quite, you know, it's an emotional connection.
Absolutely. And it's one of the few important regions that has a very powerful biodiversity, because if you compare it to other important wine regions where the vineyards are practically spread all over, only 10% of our territory is under vine. Only 10% of the appellation territory of Chianti Classico is under vine. And so it's very important, this.
So listen, I just wanted to break and remind our viewers, if anybody has any questions, please go ahead and write them, and we'll try to get to answer them. I know that somebody says hello, Francesco, to you. They had a tasting with you at Young Charlie. I don't know what that is, but they say hello. And I'm seeing a lot of flags. I see the Dominican Republic watching us, and Brazil. If anybody is watching from a faraway destination, send us the name of your country and the flag, and so we can say hi to you wherever you're watching from. I already saw some Italian flags, of course, as well. But welcome everybody, and please go ahead and ask questions.
We have a French flag.
We have a French flag. Okay, yay! So listen, and Hong Kong, there we go. Russia.
Hong Kong, my God. Fantastic. Oh, no, yes. Russia.
And Portugal. Yay, Portugal.
Amazing. The world is small.
The world is small, right, on Instagram. So listen, so Francesca, you set up the history, and obviously linked to your family and what we saw. So tell us a little bit about how you have brought it forward, because today we are looking, we're looking at a very different portfolio of wines that includes a lot of expressions of Gran Selezione, which is the newest category, and obviously single vineyards as well. Yes, I have. Yeah, the Ceni Primo here as well. I couldn't hold up all three bottles. But
I'm,
so tell us, they're also,
yeah,
I don't know if we can show the labels, but I mean, look
this
how
is a
gorgeous, look how
this is a
gorgeous these
beautiful
labels are.
label.
I just love them. I just think they're just gorgeous. Here you have,
Just
you
like,
see.
yeah, these are details of a family tree that has been designed in 1484, and is displaying Chianti at that time. So in Colle di La, in this one here, we can see Siena, we can see Brolio. Where is it? Here, Castello di Brolio.
Right. Okay. Oh yeah, you
We
can see, of
have,
course.
we have
Yeah.
Gaioli, we have Radda, we have Castellina, what was
Oh my.
Chianti one a long time ago.
No, it's beautiful.
And yeah, there are. I love them. Beautiful. And of course, the original family tree is here at the winery. And everybody can watch it while they're tasting in the tasting. Anyhow, to answer to your question, I come from another experience because I was in advertising for quite a bit of time. And it happened that there was the possibility to buy back the winery, because for 2 decades, in the 80s and the 90s of last century, Ricasoli was owned by several other companies. And because we lost control in the late 60s, beginning of the 70s of last century, and the fame and the awareness, the respect of this, some of the an important wine journalist said that historically speaking, Brolio is the Lafitte of Tuscany, historically speaking. And all this was lost. So when I decided to buy back Ricasoli, was almost bankrupt and was not anymore mentioned by the most important.
But had that been your intention for a long time, or was it that the opportunity presented itself, or had you already kind of planted out a vision that this was your goal, that you wanted
No,
to regain?
something, a blow
It just,
like that.
right, an opportunity, a spontaneous.
Yeah, and most of the people said I was completely crazy because I was risking too much. And sometimes they were telling me, well,
What, in
much
the
easier to
wine
do
business?
something. Well, sometimes it was like almost playing cards. But
Right.
I had good people around me. Was the right moment, a little bit of luck, and then bringing back the roots of the place. I mean, this is a place that I will send you a video, by the way, and you have to see it. It's amazing.
Okay.
And it's describing what is the reality of Ricasoli. For the people that are listening to us, Ricasoli is the family name and is also the company name, and Brolio is the place. And where is the place? The place is the most beautiful area, the historical Chianti. So we are in the Senese Chianti, half an hour drive from Siena, 1 hour drive south from Florence. So really in the middle of Tuscany. And you have really to drive to Brolio because there are no main roads really leading to Brolio.
So let me just
in
set it up for a second, because you drive through, you're located in Gaioli Chianti, which is one of the more wild and green and savage parts of the appellation, with less apparent vineyard, a lot of forest. And you drive along these roads, these curvy, fantastic roads. And then before you see this fairy tale castle, the Castello di Brolio. It is, architecturally speaking, stunning. And the way, yes, the way that it has these huge defensive walls that sit like a crown on the vineyard with the castle on top. It is probably, from a photographer's perspective, or anybody who just loves the Tuscan landscape, you just can't beat it. Somebody's asking
Yeah.
how many kilometers from Florence? How many kilometers from Florence?
Roughly 65. There are
65.
different paths, different way to reach it. You go through Greve, or you take the highway, and then you take Montevarchi and then Gaiole, or you go to Siena, but it's longer, and then you go back towards Brolio. But at the end, tutte le strade portano a Brolio.
All roads lead to Brolio, right?
And so in '93, I purchased Ricasoli. I did a sort of chapter 11. So through a long process that at the end was much shorter than I thought, because in 2 years we brought it back active. And then little by little, I have been replanting the entire estate. So 240 hectares has been replanted, been doing the new cellar, the new reception, the new everything. So today it's a beautiful place to visit, where you can have a lot of different experiences. We have a restaurant, we have a bar. You haven't seen the bar. It's a vintage bar.
Oh, no.
Yeah, fantastic. A vintage bar named to the Eroica, the bicycle big event.
But it's not the bar. Is it the bar in front of Oh, I know. I mean, I remember the bar before. No, it had all the bicycle posters inside.
Correct.
But it's yours now. Really? That's such a cute bar. It's so adorable. It's like a little gem for cyclists. You know, you walk in and there's, you get your little cappuccino, espresso in the morning, and
lots of fun.
So tell us, yes.
And so I think that we have been really reinventing the entire property from the scratch. What we haven't changed is the will to always improve, do better, experiment, to do fine-tuning in small detail. We have a fantastic team, and I can tell that today, especially you mentioned Colle di La, that is a single vineyard, 100% Sangiovese on amazing limestone soil, very calcareous. We are not happy just to do the single vineyard. We want to give the very specific DNA to this wine. So since 2017, we have been selecting from the grapes of the vineyards the yeast that are used to vinify Colle di La now, and then the Cruz in the following years. More and more, we are trying to respect what is the origin of the grape, and we do for the different cru, we have a tailored approach. So nothing is given for granted, and we want to really respect. And as you know, these three cru that are not very well known yet, because they have been introduced just last year. But for me, it's a big revolution in appellation without making great changes, because Sangiovese is still there, is Gran Selezione, but is done with the intention to show how different three Sangiovese can be within the same estate, within the same property. But the only differences are the soil. So how sensitive is this amazing grape variety that I compare it to l'arcobaleno. Come si dice l'arcobaleno in English?
A rainbow.
The rainbow, because Sangiovese has so many different faces. And it's not enough to mention just Sangiovese. What are you drinking, Sangiovese? It's like saying, you know, what kind of Sangiovese? Sangiovese, many people don't know, but it's the most important red grape variety planted in central Italy, and extremely well-known and respected appellation are using this grape variety. And what we did was a research in trying to find the vineyard that was more powerful in exploiting its own personality. So it took really many years before we decided to produce the first, Colle di La was the first, and it was 2007. But Ceni Primo and Roncicone, only in 2015, we made the first vintage. Correct.
These are the other two single vineyards that, yeah,
16.
that Francesco mentioned.
You have the 16?
I have 17 here, 17.
Ah, okay.
The new releases.
Well.
You have 17.
Challenging vintage that are not in distribution yet in US, 17. But for the lucky one that can still find 15 and 16 are gorgeous vintages. Fantastic.
So what you just said basically sums up some of today's revolution in your region, because as you said, and you put it, you know, we are rediscovering what we already have within our vineyards. And that is exactly kind of the subtle transformation that we've been seeing, because Chianti Classico now has taken a more focused approach to understand the differences in comuni, and I guess you would call them subzones or villages of the appellation, and of single vineyards. And you even put it down to the soil types and even the yeasts in the vineyards. And your 3 single vineyard wines are the result of this massive research project that you did to map your individual vineyards, to really understand the soil types, as we see from the soil samples behind you, to really understand every tiny detail of your terroir, of your land. And I wanted to ask you, were there, after this big process, were you surprised by your findings? Was there anything that stood out as a big lesson learned, unexpected, or were there other things that you were otherwise, didn't expect, or that you learned from that your territory taught you over the course of this huge project?
Monica, we never stop to learn, and who is declaring the opposite is already failing right. 100%. I want to start saying that we have a lot of Paulo Sergio from Brazil.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes, yeah.
Let's say that tradition in Chianti Classico, such as the Brolio, the regular Brolio, or our Gran Selezione Castello di Brolio, yeah?
Right.
These 2 are still made with, let's say, the traditional approach. What is the traditional? That at least in Brolio, we vinify all our plots separately of Sangiovese. We age it separately in the cellar, and only in the last moment we decide how to blend. And sacco di gente saluta. And so in Brolio, we do every year more than 200 separate vinification, and we keep everything separate because we can keep track and record of each plot of vineyard following. It's like having a child. They are all different characters. They all have a different personality. And if you get to know them year after year, you can treat them in the proper way, and you can eventually blend it in the best way. So Castello di Brolio, that is our Grand Vin, is made with this approach, using the very best Sangiovese from all the different soils, and mainly are the 5 soils that I have on my back are from a higher altitude, just close to the castle, is sandstone, arenaria, Then we have, very important for us is Alberese, limestone, very calcareous. In between these two, we have another soil that is galestro, schistous, a compacted clay, a dark soil that is more close to the family of the sandstone. And then we have marine deposit. Millions of years ago, there was the beach. So where pebbles, you can have sand, clay in a deeper, yeah, I brought, you see?
Oh,
This
you can
is,
see, yeah, with the
yeah,
fossil, the mineral fossils embedded in there.
yeah, marine fossil. And then at a lower altitude, in the Arbia River Valley, sorry, the small river, we have the fluvial terraces, very ancient soils that have been. So the very best that has been harvested and aged separately, we then use it for Castello di Brolio. The project of the crew is something that has been following the research of zoning, studying the different soils. This we did it with the National Center of Research. It took 3 years to understand and to study all the different soils. We have an amazing map that is describing all this. And with that, we started to have a different approach and not managing the vineyards in the same way. So even il sovescio or the management of the canopy is different depending on the location of the vineyard. And so after years, we realized that especially these three, not on the 5 soils, but only of these 3 soils were really delivering a personality that was quite unique. And so we said, why don't we bottle this? And we make it something unique. And why don't we show the uniqueness and the elegance of these Sangiovese that are in the same property? Because we age it in the same way, we vinified in the same way, the only difference is the origin of the soil. So you can find the sapidity in Roncicone, the acidity in Roncicone, you can find the structure and the volume in Colle di La, and the elegancy, the beauty. And then again in Ceniprimo, the fresh fruit, the volume again, come si dice, anyhow, the big structure of Ceniprimo. So it's very different one with the other. And this is the most interesting thing. And during the presentation last year, when we released the wines, I was afraid that some of these 3 were coming up better than the others. And it didn't happen. And for me, it was a great success because each have its own. Standing. Yeah.
Right. So we had a question before a little while ago about any blending, other grapes that you add in your other Chianti Classicos. Is there any? Everything is Sangiovese in the Gran Selezione. It's 100% Sangiovese. But how about in the Riserva or the Chianti Classico?
Even there, we have an evolution. We have been planting non-Sangiovese variety at the beginning. Today, facciamo I sovrainnesti, come si dice? We are bringing back. To make a long story short, I can explain that we are getting back to Sangiovese. So we are replanting more Sangiovese because we realize the potential and we realize the jewel that we have under our soil. And therefore is there where we are working the most. Castello di Brolio was used to have other grape variety. Today we are almost 100% Sangiovese. On the Brolio and on Brolio Riserva, we use some Cab, some Merlot, but you know, I always people ask me the percentages, and I always explain that it's not a matter of percentage. It's a matter of what you blend with. You know also Casalferro. Casalferro is our Super Tuscan, is our
Right.
IGT.
Right
Yeah,
here it is.
that's
Yeah.
another amazing wine, and that's 100% Merlot. But if you taste, say, this is an amazing expression of Chianti Classico, because it's a Merlot that has freshness, has acidity, that does not have the yummy side of Merlot. And so if I blend this kind of Merlot, Casalferro, in our Sangiovese, you are not spoiling our Sangiovese. So it's more the grape variety that you use that is Chiantified in a sort of way.
Right.
If you
It takes on the
if you
character.
use,
Right.
exactly, if you use a grape variety that is has a very strong typicity, like a cab that is very much herbaceous, it's going to ruin it. But if you are able to obtain a great Chiantified Cabernet, you're not ruining it. You're going to make a fantastic marriage with Sangiovese.
Right.
So it then depends the proportion, depends the vintage. There is a lot. But anyhow, the tendency, and not only for us, is to use more and more Sangiovese. In
No,
fact,
that's
all
always one
the
of the magics of wine is how this, this grape, it's a biological entity, and it takes on the personality of its surroundings. Just like I become more Italian when I live in Italy, or I become more Californian when I come back to California. It's one of the beautiful magics of wine. And also, just to stay on, if anybody is learning Italian vocabulary, sovescio is the word that Francesco used before. That's either green, a cover crop, or green manure. Basically, you plant barley or other things to give more nutrients to the soils. And you used another word, the sovrinesto, which I couldn't think of it, but it's grafting sovrinesto in English.
grafting on older vine
On older vines, exactly.
to change the grape variety.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's always an evolution, and for example, today we have a certification of sustainability. We have been working in a very respectful way in Brolio since day one, and it's something that is not like just being organic. I think that sustainability has a dynamic approach that always you can improve, because you never stop in learning and doing things better if you put your head. And it's a never-ending process. And that's why, for me, it's more important sustainability than just having an organic certification. Although I respect, the most important at the end is that the wine is good, healthy, and made respecting the environment, the people, etc., etc. So it's exactly. And at the end, we have to leave to our child something, and not vice versa. We have to leave something that has been improved and not impoverito.
Impoverished or
Exactly.
or weakened,
exactly.
right.
Exactly.
So, Francesco, there's one wine. I don't have a bottle, unfortunately, here to show, but one wine that is of particular importance in your portfolio. It's kind of a gem in the entire, rainbow of Italian wines, and that is your incredible Vinsanto, a wine that is really shows the art in winemaking. It shows the care and passion and culture. And it's a wine that probably, from a financial point of view, doesn't even make sense to make because it's so labor intensive and it takes so long to age and to be ready before it goes to the consumer. a couple of years ago, I had the great fortune of doing one of the most memorable retrospectives in my career with the Wine Advocate, and that was to taste your Vinsantos. We tasted all the way back to the 1923 vintage, and we tasted the 1943, the 1941, the 1929, the 1924, and the 1923. And these wines still showed enormous freshness, enormous vibrancy. So it was just such an eye-opening experience. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about the tradition of Vinsanto, that is a very special wine. I mean, as I said, it's a precious gem of a wine. And if you could give us a little bit more of information about your Vinsanto.
Thank you, with great pleasure. Yes, Vinsanto is a hidden gem because in a sort of way is a gem that is not known so much anymore and is out of fashion. But it's a magical wine that has been made in this region since ever. And as you said, Castello di Brolio has an amazing tradition. Even Takis, that was, you know, the
Giacomo Takis, yeah, the
Giacomo Takis,
kind of the
enormous
godfather of Italian wine, right?
Exactly.
And famous enologist and a great intellect, a wine passion
and a great
and knowledge.
as well. Yeah. And he had a great respect for the Vinsanto of Brolio. When he wrote the book about Vinsanto, he also came here. I wasn't there at that time, but I know. And there is something magical in Brolio Vinsanto. And very briefly, I explained the process. I mean, here in Brolio, we use a Malvasia Bianca, Malvasia Toscana, un pochino di Trebbiano, a little bit of Trebbiano, and some Sangiovese, okay, as well. But Malvasia is the backbone of the wine. The grapes are hung manually. It's not a late harvest. We just need the grapes to be extremely healthy and at the right ripening. And then in small boxes, we bring them in a big room that has nets at the window, and we hang these grapes, these bunches, one after the others with homemade hooks, and it's like a, you know, like a trail. And
like a braid,
like
a woman's braid of hair, no? A treccia,
exactly.
Right?
And I think I have posted a picture of these hanging grapes some years ago on my Instagram, but I will do it this year as well.
Yeah,
And
post more.
and we leave these grapes there, and it's getting the night wind and the fresh wind and the heat of the day. When it's raining, we close the windows. And so little by little, without being made artificially, the grapes are losing their weight. It means they lose the water. And so they, come dell'uva passa, ma non come sapore, ma insomma, they lose the weight.
Right, they dehydrate. They lose some of their water mass.
So, and then normally is before Christmas time. We press them very gently. And this is the very delicate moment, because what happened is that at the same time, from the caratelli, so the barrels that we call caratelli, that
they're very small, like this. Maybe
different size, huh?
Different sizes, but
different sizes. From very small to some a little bit bigger, 100 liters, something even more. So this is a very delicate moment, because at that time Frascati, no, that's another region. I feel it is underrated. But we can talk. It's a very delicate moment because what we do, one of the secrets of Vinsanto is the mother. So the deposit of the yeast that are left at the bottom of the barrel that really gives the house style. Okay, so as soon as we have been doing il mosto, the must of the new vintage, we take out the previous vintage from the oak, and we we don't wash the barrel, but we immediately put, and these yeast are the propeller to start the fermentation that takes place for some time. Because, for example, I just make you the example. We have on the market now 2011,
right?
Yeah. And what happened this year is that 2020, Christmas time, we'll put the mast of 2020 when we take out 12. So,
oh wow, okay.
12, can you imagine? So 12 has been in oak for how many years?
Right, so that's 8 years, right? The 12 has been in oak. So then, so the timing has to be perfect, right? The timing has to be perfect to put the new wine in the container of the, in the, you know, the vessel of the old wine. Wow.
And this is done in order to keep the yeast alive and not spoiled.
Right, right.
Because
to keep them going.
Exactly.
So it's ancestral,
It's something that goes far away from what any kind of book on winemaking tells you.
Right.
And
I mean, the balance, right? To keep the yeast alive, to keep them healthy, to keep them going. I mean, it is, you know, it is something of a madman experiment, you know?
Correct. And then a lot of barrels taste different way because they all react in a different way. So we are not talking about new oak, no, old oak. Oak is not important, it's the container. The yeast are even more important. And you don't feel it at the top, but you leave a cushion of air in order to allow
the fermentation,
exactly,
the
fermentation.
Right.
And very seldom you check. Okay, so
you just leave it there, right? And then I know that some caratelli kind of go bad, so they have to be. I mean, you know, it's almost a little bit of a Russian roulette sometimes with, you know, with what's going to be. But what the caratelli are made out of different kinds of oak, or what are the woods that's used to make the vessel? I mean, there are different woods as well, no, for the traditional.
Chestnut, oak. Sometimes also ciliegio.
Cherry, right? Cherry. The harder wood, right? Less oxygen.
Yeah, but very often is the castagno.
Yeah, walnut. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, no, amazing, and.
Well, the wines are just, I mean, also because it, you know, it is a whole sensorial experience when you drink these wines, because they have, I mean, there's a very distinctive perfume of Vinsanto, you know, a very, you know, I mean, obviously there's fruit, but it's been, you know, so pushed to an extreme with kind of a, you know, like a brown sugar and you know, a dried apricot and a honey and acacia, you know, I mean, it's just an incredible.
You just need to have a lot of fantasy, because there is a compound of a lot of perfumes. But I want to add something, because Vinsanto is known to be paired with the biscotti, the dried biscotti. And, you know, I want to say that there are good tradition and bad tradition. We have a lot of nice tradition, but this is not a good tradition. This is a bad tradition. And biscotti are good to be used with very bad Vinsantos, so you cover the bad smell. But otherwise, a great Vinsanto need to be not too much chilled, but low temperature, small glasses. Sorry, you actually don't drink it, you sip it, because that's the best way to enjoy Vincenzo. And enjoy it with chicken liver, the fegatini toscani. It's amazing. Some foie gras,
Right,
some cheese,
right.
and not at the last at the as a dessert. Sometimes it's as a small dish, like an amuse bouche at the beginning, will open up your palate for a fantastic meal.
You know, one of the things that when I learned when I came to do that wonderful retrospective was that Vinsanto traditionally was a kind of a welcome wine. Every family in the region would make their own Vinsanto. They'd keep it by the door. So if somebody just happened to come by, a friend, a relative, or a traveler, you always had it there. So you say, "Welcome to my house," and you would give a little glass of Vinsanto as kind of this first taste. But I also, Francesco, will tell a story that actually made me laugh, because many, many years ago when I first started in this business, and I worked for another publication called The Wine Enthusiast many, many years ago. This is, I guess, at this point, maybe 20 years ago. I was doing an article on dessert pairing, and one of my pairings was going to be Vinsanto and biscotti, the cantucci, the little Tuscan dried biscuits. So I went to this great place in Prato where they make the biscotti, where I did the whole thing, and I had a beautiful bag of them, and I wanted to take a picture of the biscotti with the Vinsanto pairing, and I called your PR, Lucia, the fantastic Lucia who used to work, right? And I asked, can I take a picture? And she was, she didn't really understand what my request was, and she said, fine. So I showed up, and I set up this whole photo shoot in your vineyards with the Castello di Brolio behind. And I wanted to have a bottle of your Vinsanto with the biscotti. And I just remember Lucia, no, Monica. And I had my big Nikon, and I had a Hasselblad. I was completely crazy. I was going to do this big photo shoot. And I just remember she's like, I'm sorry, Monica, you can't take that picture. I was like, oh my God, what have I done? I've offended this icon of Italian wine.
Yeah. No, again, we have to remember the great and good tradition. Forget the bad.
Anyway, but I mean, a wine like Vinsanto has, I mean, it is the Vinsanto del Chianti Classico. It is such a special wine. But all of your wines in the portfolio are always, give us a taste of your territory and of the tradition and the history that only you can, that you can offer. So it's always a pleasure.
Yeah. And I think Folio that is representing us and doing.
I saw them log on, so I think they were watching us. Yeah. Well, listen, thank you.
When will you be back in Italy?
That is a very good question, and one that I'm kind of still working on, because I have so many samples here that I'm not sure when I can go back, because I'd like to finish everything I have here. But at the same time, I want to stop asking for samples to come here, because then I'll never go back home, there's Folio. Hi. No, I'm in a really catch-22, because I'm afraid that if I go back to Italy, and if I have no wines there, because now everything is here, but if I go back, and if the situation gets worse and they close down the regions, in a sense, maybe I'm better off here. I don't know. It's all up in the air. But I think technically, even though it's hard for Americans to travel, I definitely miss my home very much, and I really suffer quite a bit in this situation. It's been surreal.
È una bella matriciana al ristorante.
Una bella matriciana, sì, al ristorante sotto casa. My favorite matriciana. I miss my Roman life. I miss everything, and it's been too long. But at this point, I think I'm going to try to finish the wines that I have here so that I can go back with a clean slate. But anyway, it's hard to make any plans with this. Yeah. Listen, everybody is saying hello, and luxury problems. Yeah, I guess it is a luxury problem, right? Be careful what you wish for. Being a wine critic is hard work. There are a lot of wines, a lot of logistics. So Listen, Francesco, you have been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing
Thank
this
you.
hour with you and your
You are
time.
fantastic.
And thank you for telling us more about Castello di Brolio and Barone Ricasoli and all of your beautiful wines. And
Grazie,
I hope
grazie
to see you
Monica.
soon in Tuscany.
Take care. All the best.
Ciao, Francesco,
Ciao.
grazie. Ciao.